David King, now, as a forward, conceding a mark was... there was two moves.
Yeah.
The magnet to the back line and then out of the team if you let it happen too often. Give us a rundown on the culprits in the AFL currently.
We talk about midfielders only going one way and they're downhill skiers. I've got the aerial downhill skiers as forwards. Forwards who get intercept marked against by their direct opponent. So let's have a look at the top half a dozen or so in the competition right now that lead the way in the most negative stat you could possibly find.
No way.
Coaches hate these
Coaches hate. Oh, Nick Larkey's number one. So, and they have the second fewest inside 50s in the comp, North Melbourne. So he shouldn't be there. That ball has to get to ground. That is your responsibility. Aaron Norton, we've talked about his form as a forward. Well, he's not negating either. He's not getting the ball to ground. It's all duck or no dinner. And his one-on-one work needs work. Eric Hipwood. Now, this is one I really want to highlight. No Danaher this year. Yep. A lot of responsibility falls on Eric. He has to get those balls to ground. If he's not going to market and he hasn't had a sterling start to the season, this is a focus point for him straight away. And you can go through that. I think in your mind's eye, you can see sometimes it's team responsibility, not kicking to favoured side. I understand that, but they've got to fight the fight, these guys. And if you see a player from your team, I reckon you can nearly see when that happens. Caught behind, a step off, don't really see it through, don't really fight for your team, and then the ball bounces out and gone. So these guys are on our radar right now. We're going to keep a track of whether this continues or they can correct over the next few weeks.
It's a good chat. I would have had 20 guesses and Charlie Curnow wouldn't have been in my top 10.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise.
Really interesting.
It can be team. The ball use not going quite so...
Carlton's ball use going inside 50 is not great.
No.
So maybe that hasn't helped him.
No, as a forward, I always blame the delivery.
But you got
kick it to the favoured side, you blokes.
They're on the radar now. So we'll be watching this and we will be highlighting this in the next few weeks. You're tracking your forwards, taking all the cash, getting all the perks, and then not delivering.
Yeah,
so look out.
Like
Your mob.
You wrapped me up beautifully.
Mob.
Yeah, my mob. Joey, you're having another crack at a back line. Who are you looking at?
I am. I'm looking at the Hawks back line, but this time I'm looking at a back line that I liked what I saw on the weekend. And I think I know Sam Mitchell's another coach that likes to spin the magnets, and it's one of his great strengths. But I think now it's time for the Hawks to settle the back seven. I think the move for Weddle to play 100% game time back there last week was only the second time this season he's played 100% as a defender. And the other one was for Hardwick, Blake Hardwick, to go back. Really, it's only the third time that he's been a nominal defender in a game for the season, and they just look much more settled. It was as assured as I've seen them behind the ball this year, not just defensively, but what also it provided for their run and link. So they had 8 scores from the back half, which was the most they'd had since round 9. They looked comfortable there. Josh Weddle, we know about his game. It was his second highest rated game of his career. Now, not surprisingly, the highest rated game of his career was round 22 last year against Carlton, also when he played 100% as a defender. So I just think now it's time to maybe just settle him in defence and leave him there. I know everyone's got big raps on him. He's going to be a star. He looked more comfortable behind the ball, as did Blake Hardwick. I know they've tried to play him as a forward. I don't think it's really worked, but the role that he played on the weekend on Riley West I thought was sensational. I mean, West is a really important player to this team with his ground level play inside 50 and his ability to hit the scoreboard, but Hardwick really put him to sleep. And I just thought it was a big win for the Hawks' defence to be able to take that match up. I liked him playing back there. When you take a look at the numbers, I mean, Hardwick had a terrific game offensively, but things like this, he's a great lockdown small defender. Riley West, the numbers speak for themselves there. It was one of his poorest influential games for the year for West. Hardwick looked great. That leads me now to Friday night. Great game, Hawthorn-Adelaide. Yep. And there's one man that I think will be waiting for Blake Hardwick now, and that'll be Josh Rochelle. Because this guy, I think, is going under the radar, the form that he is in. Because if you take a look at his numbers compared to the other players that have been linked to the All-Australian small forward role, when we're talking about Ben Long or Paul Curtis, Jamie Elliott, even Jack Higgins, his numbers stack up just as well as any of them, if not better. So his play rating's the highest of them all. Now, this is per 100 minutes because his numbers, Rochelle, if you just looked at him on face value, were skewed by the fact that he got injured early in the North Melbourne game. He went off in the first quarter with the ribs. But those numbers are as good as any of the other small forwards in the competition, and I think Hardwick will go to him, but he's one you've got to keep an eye on. He's having a sensational year.
I love the fact that you brought up Josh Weddle because Hawks, when their form was in and out a little bit, he's been their go-to. He's Mr. Fix-It. So they're throwing forward, he'd come through the midfield. He's almost their floater. And I know for a fact when they recruited Barras and Battle, it was a licking the lips moment for Sam Mitchell. Oh, beauty, I can release Hardwick forward. But I think the stability they showed last week, and I'm with you, Joey, if they set that, they built the ball up beautifully from there, and they had the consistency and probably the effectiveness that they should.
I know you've been big Sicily forward. I've been slow to come to the party. I think they needed to get the defence settled, but I think with Weddle there, maybe when Sicily comes back, it is now time to look at him forward because I like what I saw behind the ball.
Sam's played around with the magnets of Harbick and Sicily, and he's spun them into a flat spin. Can't do that with Weddle. Got to let the kids just settle and gather. And it's easy to learn the game down back and then grow from there. The Rochelle discussion's a beauty. So what does that do to Rankin? What would you do if you were Matty Nicks? How often are you using Rankin as a forward, given the fact you've got Rochelle in great form?
Yeah, I know it's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's a bit of a sort of week by week proposition because Rankin's so good as a mid, but so good as a forward as well. So I don't know how he can use that to his weapon. I mean, he can use Dawson and Rankin however he likes in the game for me. But Rochelle is the constant inside 50 who's posing a real handful this year.
And Rankin's only 30% forward.
Yeah.
So the midfield time's high, and we know he can impact either way. So I like the fact Weddle too sitting back. Joey loves to look at it
and go at the game.
Go at the game.
Test at the game.
Have it in front of him, and one of the most damaging. Kingy, Ross Lyon or Meow Meow?
Meow Meow. Remember Meow Meow? She's an Australian table tennis player and back in the 2000
Forrest
Olympics.
Gump style.
Forrest Gump style, yeah. I don't want to call him Forrest Gump. I'll call him Meow Meow. They involved themselves and killed in a game of high ball movement, I reckon, for not a lot of scoring. So there's a lot going on. It's like a game of ping pong. And I just wonder if they've become too reliant on scoring from defensive 50. Number one in the competition via percentages, and they've lost their half-back game. They're very rarely winning the ball there and exploding and going. And they were last year, but they're not this year. And it's almost like they've only got one way of really getting it, and that's from deep in defence and going full coast to coast. Their forward half game really isn't there. So I just look at these guys that are the territory takers, which is Wanganeen, Miller, Sinclair and Hill. They're the only three that really take the ball forward with any venom. The others are lateral ball users, get to fat side. They're role players, really, to enable the ball to finish with these guys. Is there a better way? Is there a more effective way that they could win the ball back a bit closer to their own goal? Can they press a bit further forward and have these three, basically pot shotting from 50, 55, after the zone set, play a different way? Because the way they're going at the moment, it's a little bit self-defeating. It's very difficult against good teams to go full length of the ground. And we're going to see it tomorrow night. We're going to see what they can do against the Dog. I think they're a solid ball movement team, but they get one entry inside 50 and it doesn't last. It's out of there with quick sticks. So
can they get more drive than you're saying with Sinclair and Wangan and Miller if one of them's in the midfield? And maybe try and win the ball higher
between the arcs.
Yeah, I'd load up. I look at their midfield and I think, there's not a great threat there. Are you going to really rely on winning contested footy that much in the midfield? They're coming against a team this week that I don't think they're going to be able to compete with in the middle anyway. So why not get full bang for buck when you win the footy? Because these three do some amazing things with the ball. And Hill's a rung below the other two, but the other two are in great form. Let them go, let them move, and maybe drop off the fact you have to take 105 marks a game to compete. Try and play with some express. I think if you don't against the good teams, you're going to run aground.
Yeah, it's a good point. I still think, as potentially an option, you can move Hill to half-back, who's done it before, and as you said, he's not the biggest weapon out of those three.
Yep.
You can still play him behind the ball and still get the offence you want, but try and use Wangan, Miller and Sinclair up more through the midfield.
I'd load up. Put them in the middle, let them run. You know what? If it doesn't work, you can flip it like that. So let's wait and see. But we need to see those three firing tomorrow night. There's no doubt about that.
And that almost shifts it too in terms of if they're starting from half back and you've got Wanganeen, Malera and those guys coming through, they know the traffic's there, but they're good enough to get through.
Yeah.
If they're getting in another 10 or 15 metres, 20 forward, you're getting the deeper entries, like you said. So it might be a different look for
help the scoring.
Help the scoring. Joey, just while we're on the Saints, you want to have a look at Rowan Marshall?
Yeah, I do. It's time for Rowan Marshall to have a big second half to the year. I think it's gone under the radar the average season that he's having for the quality ruckman that we know he is and that we've come to expect. Because right now, he's the 15th highest rated ruckman in the competition. Guys like Kieran Briggs and Riley O'Brien are having higher rated years, and I don't think anyone would put that on him in the basket. So you take a look at his numbers this year. These are mostly, some of his poorest seasons since 2018. When you take a look at his ability to impact the play rating, but his marks, his ability to hit the scoreboard, his hit-out win rate is dropping year on year. and his hit-outs to advantage as well. So he's really not getting full bang for buck with his hits, and his contested possessions are down as well. So I just think for him, he had an injury-interrupted pre-season, which I think gave a bit of a slow start. He's only polled coaches' votes in 3 games. He's got a total of 11. This guy, the last 2 years, had polled coaches' votes in 10 games and had polled up over 50 coaches' votes. We're already more than halfway through the season, and he just hasn't had as much influence on games as they would like. He played a big one a few weeks ago over in Perth against the West Coast Eagles. A couple of ones early in the season. His Geelong game back early in the year was his best, but just not quite having the same impact. And talking about if they're going to match the Western Bulldogs, he has to have a big game for them to be any chance to try and at least break even with the Dogs.
Is his workload too much? Is he getting a chop out at any
potentially,
stage?
and there's a lot of talk about Tom DeConing coming to the club now. You know, how's that going to work with the two of them? Is there going to be change? There's still a lot to play out there. Is that maybe what they're thinking, that Rowan Marshall needs some more support and do that? So you just beat off and want to see him step up.